Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the announcement of the Canon RF24-105 f2.8 ISL USM Z lens. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So one thing I want to get out of the way right off the bat is that today's video is not a review. I do not have a 24-105 f2.8. A lot of what we're talking about today is speculative. We're going through the specs. I would have loved to have tried it out, but I was not cool enough for that. So I just want to make sure we get that out of the way because I've done speculative announcement videos in the past, and people are like, oh man, what a waste of time. It wasn't even a lens review. This is not a lens review. We're talking about the announcement. We're going to talk about who this is probably being marketed toward, whether or not you should consider maybe putting your 24-105 f4 on the market to sell, to trade in for this, and many other things. Now, the one thing that stands out the most on this lens is the Z, which is kind of odd. There are 25 other letters in the alphabet, and they happen to put a Z in there, which is the exact same letter that Nikon uses for their lens mount, so that's kind of odd. So if you're a regular subscriber of this channel, I put out a video at the beginning of the year, which was 5 things I wanted to see Canon do in 2023. And one of the things that I asked them to do was to push the boundaries of the RF mount and come out with new innovative lenses. Well, they did that with the 28-70 f2 a few years back, and now with this lens, a 24-105 f2.8, you can make the argument that they've done that again. They absolutely did fulfill that wish of mine, is that they did come out with a new innovative lens that we've never seen before. So for that, I'm going to give Canon a check mark for fulfilling something that we asked for. But the real question is a 24-105 f2.8 good for you and what you do? So in order to do that, let's talk about our old friend, the RF24-105 f4 IS, which is also an L lens. What I love about this lens, and what a lot of you love about this lens, is that it's only 1.5 pounds. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife. It's good at everything. It's not perfect at anything, but it's good enough to get you through most of your shoots. And while the f4 aperture may be a deal breaker for a lot of you on this lens, as you can see, my shots that I took at the Vatican for my family vacation, even at these higher ISOs on the original EOS R, those files seem to handle pretty well, and those shots look pretty clean to me. I was pushing the ISO all the way up to 12,800, which of course begs the question is, does the maximum aperture in terms of the light matter as much as it used to? But for me, the appeal of the f4 was that it was a good walk-around lens, something small and light I could take on vacation with me. But as I look at the specifications of the 2.8, from a size perspective, it seems to mirror a 70-200 EF mount, the really long version of the 70-200 in terms of size, and it seems to be about the same weight as my RF 28-70 f2, which is not well known for being a light lens. It's actually quite heavy. So depending on the reasons why you are getting excited about the 2.8 version, there could be some deal breakers in here for you. Not to mention that, like my RF 28-70 f2, it comes in at a street price of $3,000. Well, let's dive into what we're seeing right here, because when you look at this lens, you see 2 holes on the side. What are those 2 holes on the side for? Also, you see a ring on the back. What's that ring for? Well, it appears that Canon has not necessarily designed this lens to get all you f4 people excited about gaining a stop of light. I think it actually is designed more for videographers. The reason why you have that ring on the back is to change aperture. They don't even enable it apparently for stills. Gordon Lang put out a video on this where he shows off the aperture ring on the back, and you can only use it for video. You can't use it for stills. So unlike shooting on, say, a Fujifilm camera where the lenses all have aperture rings on them, you can't do that for stills apparently on this new version of the lens. It is definitely catered toward video. And that brings us to the 2 holes on the side. What are those even for? Those are for accessories that cost between $1,000 and $1,300 for power zooms, it's for video making. Clearly, they've gone all in on using this lens to market towards videographers, which of course is a very fast emerging market and probably a smart move on the part of Canon. But does that leave some of you out in the dark who don't want to have a lens that weighs 3 freaking pounds, is twice as long as the RF24-105 f4, and costs $3,000? That may actually leave some of you in the dark on this, because me personally, if you could come out with a 24-105 that's roughly this size, roughly this weight, and 2.8, it's super appealing to me, especially if it's, say, less than $2,000. But at $3,000, I think that's going to leave a lot of you in the dark. I do think that in order for this lens to be worth it, the sharpness is going to need to at least be on the level of the 28-70 f2, because if it's anything less than that, I'm not sure it can justify the $3,000 price tag to a lot of you. Another big genre I see this being a hit for is wedding photographers. I shoot the occasional wedding, and I like to use my 28-70 f2. I think it does a fantastic job, but in all honesty, a lot of times I don't necessarily need the f2 maximum aperture for a lot of things, and sometimes that extra reach would be good, and 2.8 for a lot of you is enough. So I do see event photographers, wedding photographers greatly benefiting from this new 2.8 version of the 24-105. But outside of those two genres of videographers and event photographers, I don't see huge benefits. Me personally, I'm a portrait photographer, and I talked about the aforementioned 28-70 f2. It gives me an extra stop of light and gives me better isolation, better bokeh, not to mention the fact that I have the 35 1.8, the 50 1.2, the 85 1.2, and then if I want to go beyond that, I can go to my 135 f1.8, and then I even have the 100 2.8, which is the same aperture as this new lens, but all my primes are 2 to 2 1/3 stops faster lenses than the 24-105. So for me, I don't really see myself upgrading to it. But another thing to keep in mind is, man, for $3,000, I can buy a Fuji X-H2, which is their flagship camera. I can buy a Tamron 17-70 2.8. And why does 17-70 matter? Well, what's 17 times 1.5? 24-25. What's 70 times 1.5? 105. This lens is $800. This body's $2,000. That's $2,800. That means that I can buy Fuji's flagship camera and a lens that's a 24-105 equivalent at 2.8 for $200 less than the lens that we're talking about in today's episode. I'm not saying you should go out and buy another camera system, but I am saying that for the price of this singular lens, you could buy another camera system with an equivalent of 24-105 2.8. That does it for today's episode. I hope each and every one of you found this episode to be useful. I hope you found it to be helpful. Obviously, it's just a speculation episode. We're just talking here. Tell me about it in the comments below. Are you going to get this lens? I'm not sure if I'm going to get this lens, to be completely honest. I don't think it fits the type of photographer I am at the moment, but never say never, because you do never know. If you like this channel, I humbly ask you, click the subscribe button below. And if you like the conversations that I have on this channel and you want to hear these conversations in more depth, I do highly encourage you to check out the F11 photography podcast that I do weekly, that's available on all major platforms, including Apple and Spotify. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.